Welcome back to my channel, Valuable Rare Coins. If you love discovering hidden treasures in your pocket change, you're in the right place. First, we'll uncover some of the most valuable and rare US coins that could be worth a fortune. Let's dive in. We're diving into one of the most fascinating pieces of American coinage, the 1943 P. Jefferson 5-cent coin. It might look humble, maybe even unremarkable at first glance, but this coin holds secrets and potentially a jaw-dropping value that will leave you stunned. So grab your coin jars, dust off those old collections, and stay tuned. Because this story isn't just about nickels, it's about history, war, and the kind of collector's dream that could turn 5 cents into a fortune. Let's take a journey back in time. The year is 1943. The world is deep in the grip of World War II. Resources are stretched, priorities have shifted, and even the smallest things like coins are not immune to the pressures of a global conflict. At that time, the United States Mint was faced with a crucial decision. Nickel, a key metal in the 5-cent piece, was in high demand for the war effort. It was used in manufacturing tanks, ships, and other wartime equipment. So, to conserve this critical material, the Mint changed the composition of the nickel. For a few short years, from 1942 to 1945, the traditional nickel alloy was replaced with a special wartime mixture of copper, silver, and manganese. And that's where our 1943 P coin comes in, a part of that wartime series that looks like an ordinary nickel but is actually a silver alloy coin. These are known as war nickels, and if you look closely, you'll spot a big clue that you've found one, the large mint mark above Monticello on the reverse side. That big P above the building marks Philadelphia, and in 1943, that little letter meant a lot more than most people realized. The 1943 P. Jefferson nickel features the classic portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, a design that had already been in circulation for a few years. But what sets this coin apart isn't just its composition or design, it's the context in which it was made. Coins from this wartime era are filled with historical significance. They represent an America united in purpose, adjusting every facet of life to meet the demands of global conflict, even the way money was made. What makes a 1943 P. Jefferson nickel particularly valuable today? It's a combination of factors. First, not all of these coins survived in good condition. They were used in everyday transactions, passed through countless hands, and worn down over time. Most ended up scratched, faded, or damaged. But when one surfaces in near-perfect condition, mint state, uncirculated, with full details preserved, it becomes something else entirely, a highly desirable collector's piece. And then, there's the holy grail of numismatics, error coins. Yes, some of the 1943 P nickels were struck with unusual flaws or anomalies that make them extraordinarily rare. These minting errors can include off-center strikes, double dies, and most famously, coins struck on the wrong planchet. In rare cases, these errors were caught and preserved, and now they command enormous attention in auctions and private sales. But even a standard 1943 P nickel in pristine condition has serious collector appeal. The presence of silver in its alloy gives it a base value above face value, and the historical significance adds a premium for collectors. Combine those traits with a high grade from professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, and suddenly you're looking at a coin that could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Now, imagine this, a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical significance. That's what happened when one specific 1943 P. Jefferson nickel, struck with an incredibly rare error and graded in flawless condition, made headlines. This wasn't just any nickel, it was a coin that rewrote expectations for what a 5-cent piece could be worth, and now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the number that turns this humble piece of metal into a legend. One such 1943 P. Jefferson nickel sold at auction for a staggering $305,000. Yes, you heard that right. What started as 5 cents ended up commanding a price higher than some homes, cars, or even luxury yachts. This coin became a part of history not just for its wartime roots, but for the fortune it delivered to its lucky owner. So the next time you're sorting through your pocket change or flipping through that old coin collection from a grandparent's attic, keep an eye out. Because tucked away in those forgotten corners could be a treasure that turns ordinary into extraordinary. Second rare coin is all about a quiet giant in the coin world, the 1964 D. Jefferson nickel. It's a coin you might have passed over hundreds of times without a second thought. But some of these nickels aren't just old currency, they're treasure. And one rare version of this seemingly common coin has fetched a fortune. If you think valuable coins only come in gold or silver, think again. This nickel may just surprise you. Let's rewind the clock to 1964. America was in the midst of transformation. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, the Beatles were invading the music scene, and tensions from the Cold War loomed large. Amidst all this, something seemingly mundane was happening. The U.S. Mint was producing coins, millions of them. But 1964 was no ordinary year for coin production. That year marked the final issue of the Jefferson nickel, bearing a date of 1964 for circulation, at least officially. Why? Because of the nationwide coin shortage that started in the early 1960s. The mint was under intense pressure to keep up with demand, and in an unusual move, they continued minting 1964 dated nickels well into 1965 and even into 1966. This means that 1964 nickels, especially those struck at the Denver Mint, saw unusually high mintage numbers. The Denver Mint version, denoted by the small d mint mark to the right of Monticello on the reverse, is the one we're zooming in on today. With over 1.7 billion coins struck with that mark at first glance, the 1964 D. Jefferson nickel might seem like the most ordinary coin in your collection. But here's the catch: not all 1964 D nickels were created equal. You see, while the majority were mass-produced for circulation, some coins stood out due to subtle details, die varieties, min errors, and overall strike quality. And this is where things get very interesting. Some 1964 D nickels were struck using worn dies, resulting in weak details. But a very small number were struck using fresh, sharp dies that produced beautifully defined coins. These are known as full steps nickels, referring to the distinct, full lines on the steps of Monticello. Only the best struck coins have 5 or 6 fully separated steps, and they are incredibly rare for the 1964 D issue due to the mint's rushed production pace that year. Find a 1964 D. Jefferson nickel with full steps in pristine, uncirculated condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. Most coins from that time were poorly handled, bagged roughly, and sent out for immediate circulation. Very few were preserved with the level of care needed to survive untouched. But for the fortunate few that were saved, and even more rarely, struck with absolute precision, these coins became elite collectibles. Then there's the world of mint errors. Double strikes, off-center strikes, planchet errors, and misaligned dies, all of these can make a coin go from pocket change to premium collectible. In the case of the 1964 D. Jefferson nickel, even more exotic errors, like overstrikes or transitional planchet mistakes, have surfaced in rare circumstances, driving their value into the stratosphere when authenticated and graded by reputable services. But beyond condition and errors, what truly sets a coin apart is its rarity combined with eye appeal. A flawless 1964 D nickel with razor-sharp full steps, 0 marks, and a stunning luster becomes a dream find, one that collectors are willing to battle over at auction houses across the globe. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just a nickel. How much could it really be worth? Well, the coin you see every day might only be worth 5 cents. But the right 1964 D. Jefferson nickel, struck perfectly and preserved in untouched condition, can fetch a price that will blow your mind. One such coin, just one, a 1964 D. Jefferson nickel in spectacular mint state with full steps detail, once sold at auction for an astonishing $240,000. That's right. A coin worth 5 cents in 1964 has grown into a 6-figure legend. thanks to a rare combination of history, condition, and collector demand. So, what's the takeaway? Never underestimate what might be hiding in plain sight. Check your old change. Search through those forgotten drawers and dusty boxes. Because one of the most valuable coins in your life might be sitting silently in your possession, waiting to be discovered. Third expensive hiding in plain sight, right inside your old coin jar or stuck between couch cushions, could be a coin from 1971 that looks just like the rest, but has a secret that's made it one of the most sought-after finds in the numismatic world. Stick around, because this isn't just about nickels, it's about knowing what to look for, and how one small detail could mean the difference between common currency and a life-changing discovery. Let's rewind to 1971. America was in the middle of dramatic cultural shifts. Vietnam War protests echoed across college campuses, gas prices were starting to creep up, and Walt Disney World had just opened its gates. Amid all this change, the U.S. Mint was doing what it always does, producing coins for everyday use. That year, they struck millions of Jefferson nickels, including at the Denver Mint, which is where our story begins. Now, the 1971 D nickel at first glance doesn't seem like anything special. You've got the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on the front, the Monticello building on the back, and the tiny D mint mark tucked neatly to the right of the building. It's a design we all know. In fact, if you were to empty your pocket right now, there's a chance one might be in there. And most of them? Sure, they're worth face value. Maybe a little more if they're in decent condition. But here's the thing, when it comes to coins, details matter. And in the case of the 1971 D nickel, those details can make all the difference. For starters, let's talk condition. Most coins from this era were made to be spent, not saved. They were tossed into pockets, passed through hands, used in vending machines, and over time, wore down. That's what makes high-grade examples so rare. Finding a 1971 D nickel in brilliant, uncirculated condition, with crisp features, no scratches, and that original mint luster, is a challenge. But those are the coins collectors are desperate to get their hands on, even more elusive, the ones with full steps. This refers to the number of clear, distinct steps on Monticello on the reverse side. On most circulated coins, these steps are worn down or poorly struck. But in a few rare cases, the coin was struck so perfectly that every step remains fully visible. These full steps nickels are like unicorns in the collecting world, especially from 1971 and especially from the Denver Mint, but the real excitement comes from error coins. That's right, sometimes mistakes are worth a fortune. Misaligned dies, double strikes, off-metal planchets, or overstruck errors are all potential gold mines. In fact, there are reports of 1971 D nickels being struck on leftover planchets from other denominations, an extremely rare event that only occurs when the mint makes a mistake and doesn't catch it in time. When these rare error coins get discovered and authenticated by top grading services like PCGS or NGC, they hit the auction block with massive demand. Add full steps to the mix? Now you're talking about a coin that collectors will fight over and pay top dollar to add to their collection, and here's where the story gets truly incredible. Imagine having a coin that sat untouched for decades in an old drawer. It's clean, sharp, brilliantly struck, maybe even a minting error hiding in plain sight. You take it to a grader, and the results come back flawless. Full steps, mint state, or better. Suddenly, what was once 5 cents becomes something no collector wants to pass up. Now, after all that build-up, you're probably wondering, what's the highest known price one of these 1971 D Jefferson nickels has reached? Hold on tight. Because one such coin in stunning condition, verified by experts, and preserved like a time capsule, was once sold for an astonishing $130,000. Yes, you heard that right. A 5-cent coin from 1971, struck in Denver, ended up being worth more than some luxury cars, or even a house in some places, and that, my friends, is the magic of coin collecting. Every old coin you hold in your hand has a story. Most are just part of everyday life. But a few, just a few, carry secrets that only the keen-eyed collector can unlock. And when they do, the payoff can be massive. So next time you come across a 1971 D nickel, don't just toss it in the coin jar. Give it a closer look. Examine the details. And if it looks unusually sharp or flawless, don't ignore it. You might just be holding a hidden fortune. Especially, what if I told you that the 1973 Jefferson nickel, yes, a 5-cent coin from the early 70s, could be worth a fortune? Stick around, because we're about to dive into the little-known secrets, collector buzz, and jaw-dropping potential value of the 1973 United States 5-cent coin. You'll never look at your spare change the same way again. Let's set the scene. 1973 was a year of turbulence and change. The Vietnam War was still ongoing, Watergate was making headlines, and the first mobile phone call had just been made. Meanwhile, back at the U.S. Mint, millions of Jefferson nickels were being struck, coins that were meant to blend into everyday life. Fast food meals, bus rides, vending machines, these nickels played their role in the background of American life. But as any coin collector knows, not all coins are created equal. The 1973 Jefferson nickel might seem ordinary on the surface, but there are a few key things that make some of these coins stand out in a big, valuable way. First, let's talk design. On the obverse, you've got the familiar face of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, looking proudly to the left. On the reverse, there's Monticello, his famous Virginia estate, rendered in classic architectural detail. And below Monticello, you'll often find the mint mark, which tells us where the coin was struck. In 1973, these nickels were made at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and while most were churned out by the millions and used immediately in circulation, a select few were different. Now, what turns a regular 1973 nickel into a collector's dream? 3 big factors: condition, strike quality, and mint errors. Let's start with condition. A coin that's been circulated, tossed in pockets, or left to rattle around in a drawer might be worth only its face value. But an uncirculated, mint-state 1973 nickel, one that still gleams as if it just left the mint floor, is a rare find. Collectors go wild for coins like that, especially if they're graded MS-65 or higher by top grading companies. But even among mint-state coins, some have something even more special: full steps. If you flip a Jefferson nickel and look at Monticello, you'll see a series of steps leading up to the building. On most coins, these are faint or worn even right from the mint. But occasionally, a coin is struck so sharply that you can see all 5 or 6 steps clearly. These full steps nickels are the holy grail for Jefferson collectors, and very few 1973 nickels qualify. Then there's the rarest aspect of all: minting errors. Mistakes during the coin production process can lead to wildly valuable variations: double strikes, off-center images, overstrikes, and coins struck on the wrong metal planchets. These are not only rare, they're often unique. No 2 errors are ever quite the same. And for those in the know, discovering an error coin can be like hitting the jackpot. So, what does this mean for the 1973 Jefferson nickel? Well, while the majority are common, a small number of them were struck in exceptional condition. Some have been graded with full steps, others discovered with bizarre and rare minting mistakes that make them stand out to serious collectors and auction houses alike. These are the coins that make headlines, show up in elite collections, and fetch eye-watering prices when they finally go up for sale. Now imagine holding one of these rare 1973 nickels. Maybe it sat in a collection for decades, untouched. Maybe it was passed down unknowingly in a family coin jar. And maybe, just maybe, it's sitting in your home right now. So, what could one of these rare 1973 Jefferson nickels actually be worth? Get ready, because one of the finest known examples of this coin, struck with absolute precision, preserved in flawless mint condition, and authenticated by experts, once sold for a mind-blowing $110,000. Yes, a 5-cent piece from 1973 reached a 6-figure sale at auction. That's the magic of numismatics, the everyday becoming extraordinary. the forgotten becoming famous. So the next time you're looking through your change, keep an eye out. You're not just holding a nickel. You might be holding a tiny piece of history with a story worth far more than you ever imagined. Last unique coin, we're taking a closer look at one of the most surprising pieces of modern American currency, the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel. It's a 5-cent coin you've probably seen 100 times, maybe even spent without a second thought. But hidden among the millions that were struck, there are a few rare nickels from this year that are now turning heads in the collector world and wallets. 2. So, how does a basic coin from 1987, minted in Denver, suddenly gain serious value and collector attention? Stick around, because we're about to peel back the layers of this mystery and uncover how a nickel that once bought you a gumball might just be worth a small fortune today. Let's rewind to the year 1987. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, Michael Jackson was topping the charts, and big hair and denim jackets ruled the streets. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was hard at work in Denver, striking millions of Jefferson nickels as part of their regular production cycle. These coins were meant for circulation. They were made to be used, spent, worn, and forgotten. The 1987 D nickel, like its predecessors, featured the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the iconic Monticello building on the reverse. It's a design most Americans know by heart. But what few people realize is that not all of these nickels were created equal. Even though the Denver Mint produced over 470 million of these coins, only a tiny fraction of them hold real value. And it all comes down to 3 critical factors: condition, strike, and rarity. First up, condition. Most coins from 1987 are banged up, scratched, or dulled by decades of use. But on rare occasions, a coin gets spared the wear and tear. Maybe it was pulled straight from a mint roll and stored carefully away. Maybe it sat untouched in a coin folder for years. These coins, known as uncirculated or mint-state coins, are the ones collectors seek. Now take that a step further. What if that coin wasn't just in great condition, but also perfectly struck? That's where full steps come in. On the reverse side of every Jefferson nickel, at the base of Monticello, are a series of tiny steps. In most coins, these steps are blurred or incomplete due to worn dies or weak strikes. But every now and then, a coin is struck so cleanly, with such precision, that all 5 or 6 steps appear perfectly separated and fully defined. These are called full steps nickels, and they're extremely rare for many years, including 1987. But the real treasures? Those are the mint error coins. Imagine a coin that was struck off-center or doubled during minting, or, most incredibly, accidentally struck on the wrong metal. These mistakes are freak accidents, but when they happen, they can turn an ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind showpiece. And collectors will pay serious money for coins like that, especially if they've been professionally graded and authenticated by top-tier services like PCGS or NGC. Why is the 1987 D nickel suddenly making waves in collector circles? Because a few examples have surfaced that check all the boxes: flawless mint condition, full steps detail, and in some cases, verified minting anomalies that make them ultra-rare. These aren't just coins, they're artifacts of precision, error, and luck. And when they go up for auction, the bidding war can be intense. Now picture this: a coin that once jingled in someone's pocket, maybe nearly forgotten, maybe set aside on a whim, turns out to be a superstar. After grading, certification, and some serious collector interest, it hits the auction block. Eyes are on it. The competition is fierce. And then, the final gavel drops. What's the magic number? One of these rare 1987 D. Jefferson nickels, preserved in pristine condition, struck with remarkable clarity, and authenticated as a top-tier example, was sold for an incredible $60,000. That's right. A simple nickel from 1987, the kind you'd barely notice in a handful of change, turned into a small fortune. What should you do? Check your change. Go through those old drawers. Dig into that coin jar that's been collecting dust for years. Because you never know. A 1987 D nickel with the right combination of beauty, condition, and rarity could be hiding in your own home, waiting to tell its story and maybe change your life. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into the hidden world of rare nickels, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another coin treasure story. Until next time, keep your eyes sharp, your coins safe, and your curiosity alive, because fortune often hides in the smallest places.